Welcome to the Fear Chronicles, your ultimate destination for spine-chilling stories and bone-tingling horror experiences. Here, we delve deep into the darkest corners of the human imagination, bringing you meticulously crafted tales inspired by real-life events, ancient legends, and the everyday mysteries that lurk in the shadows. From haunted houses and vengeful spirits to unexplained phenomena and psychological horrors, each story is designed to immerse you in a world where nightmares come to life. Whether you're a seasoned horror enthusiast or just beginning your journey into the unknown, the Fear Chronicles offers a unique blend of hyper-realistic visuals and masterfully narrated stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat and leave you yearning for more. Join our community of fearless storytellers and embrace the fear that keeps you awake at night. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of terror. Disclaimer: all content presented on the Fear Chronicles is fictional and intended solely for entertainment purposes. We strive to create original stories. Any resemblance to real events or persons is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised due to the nature of the content. The Fear Chronicles adheres strictly to YouTube's community guidelines and copyright policies. Any third-party content used is either properly licensed or falls under fair use. Thank you for choosing the Fear Chronicles. Stay safe and sleep tight. Now let's get into the story. Today's story is The Whispering House. Ellie Moran grew up in the quaint, mist-laden town of Harrow's End, a place woven with more stories than truths. Nestled in a modest apartment above a bookstore, she spent her childhood wandering the shelves and devouring tales that felt more like whispered secrets. The bookstore owner, Mrs. Plimpton, was as much of a mystery as the stories themselves, and it was she who first mentioned the house to Ellie, though only in the same vague way one might talk about shadows or fog. "You know, the old house on Maple Hollow?" Mrs. Plimpton had said one quiet afternoon, her voice barely rising above the creak of ancient floorboards. "Some say it listens, others say it whispers, but I'd keep my distance if I were you." Ellie, usually careful with her curiosities, couldn't help but press her mother for details that evening. Her mother's expression had darkened, and she whispered as if fearful the house itself might be listening. "The women in our family have always had a connection to certain places, Ellie. And that house? It's been waiting for someone like you." At first she brushed it off as another of her mother's superstitions. But lately, feeling detached and haunted by her mother's words, Ellie had started wondering if the tales held any truth. It didn't help that in the past weeks, she'd begun hearing the house mentioned by strangers at the coffee shop, classmates in passing, all murmuring as if it was something sacred and feared. One rainy afternoon, after spotting the house on an old map in the bookstore, her curiosity finally outweighed her caution. Her footsteps guided her down the winding road of Maple Hollow until she reached the house. It stood quietly at the end, shrouded by trees and mist, its silhouette shadowed against the fading daylight. She felt its presence even before she saw it. The air around it almost seemed to pulse. As she approached, a chill settled over her, different from the cold of the evening. This was something older, more visceral, as if the house had been waiting, watching, and now, at last, she was here. The stories that had filled her childhood returned in flashes, snippets of warnings, of women who'd heard voices no one else could, of doors that closed on their own, and rooms that trapped those who dared enter. In the fading light, she stopped at the base of the stairs, where the first whispers came, soft yet clear. Her name drifted toward her, carried on an unseen breeze, barely audible but unmistakable. Her pulse quickened, and with a shiver she placed her hand on the banister. The wood felt oddly warm, as though alive beneath her touch. Inside, the house seemed to draw her in deeper, each step amplifying the silence, her breaths loud and shallow against the stillness. She was surrounded by relics of lives long past, a dust-covered clock ticking sporadically, faint shadows of old furniture, and portraits on the wall with faces that seemed to shift as she passed. "Find me," a voice whispered, clearer now, tugging at her from somewhere deep within the house. She felt the call resonate in her bones, as though it had always been waiting, biding its time until she arrived. The legends were more than stories. They were a summons. And as Ellie ventured further, her own footsteps echoed back at her, each one pulling her deeper into the heart of the house, and into a part of herself she'd never dared explore. In that suffocating quiet, a single thought took root. This house knew her, had always known her, and she could leave, but it would follow, always waiting just beyond her reach. She stumbled back toward the door, feeling the weight of unseen eyes and the house's sinister smile stretching through the shadows. As she wrenched the door open and fled into the night, her name hung on the air behind her, a promise, or perhaps a threat, that this was only the beginning. And the town of Harrow's End, with its misty streets and hidden histories, seemed to watch her go, knowing well that no one truly escapes the Whispering House. As Ellie stumbled out of the house, gasping for breath, she glanced back, half expecting to see a shadow in the doorway, but the house stood silent, dark, as if nothing had happened. Relief flooded over her, and she turned, desperate to get as far away as possible. But as she walked, the familiar street began to blur, twisting into an endless row of darkened houses. Confused, she hurried forward, but every step only led her back to where she'd started, right in front of the Whispering House. Panicked, she turned and saw a dim glow through a window. Squinting, she realized it was her own apartment, right there, impossibly close. Her heart pounded as she approached, peering inside to see herself moving around, calm and oblivious. The other Ellie looked up suddenly, her face blank, eyes empty, as if sensing something was watching her. With a twisted smile, she turned toward the door and began to walk outside. Before Ellie could react, a faint whisper drifted through the night, chilling her to the bone. One of us had to stay, and as she looked back at the whispering house, its door wide open, she felt herself being pulled back, an unseen force dragging her into the dark. The last thing she saw was her double stepping into the world, her own voice softly echoing, "Goodbye, Ellie." Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you found tonight's story chilling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Fear Chronicles. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new tale from the shadows. Dive deeper into the darkness with our upcoming stories, each one more terrifying than the last. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love hearing from our fearless community. Until next time, remember, fear is just a story waiting to be told.